So match week 4 in the Premier League is officially over, but it's actually just the beginning of a brand new series here on the channel where every single weekend I will be giving you guys my thoughts on the Premier League action. Now, I don't have a name for this series yet, so maybe you guys can help me out in the comments, but basically the aim is for me to give you my thoughts, things I may have noticed in certain games, or questions that I may have about certain teams that you might be able to help me out with. Now, this weekend I watched 5 games in total in the Premier League, one of which was Manchester United versus Man City. If you want to see a full breakdown on that video, head over to the main channel, there will be a link in the description, but for now, let's look at the other 4 that I watched. Now, my viewing this weekend started off at the Emirates with Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. Now, you may be expecting me to talk about how amazing Arsenal were, or perhaps the problems with Postecoglou's new tactics, but that is not the focus for today. The focus is going to be on Noni Madueke, and the reason why he is going to be the focus of this video is because he was also the focus of the match. Arsenal had majority of the ball, and 44.7% of their attacks came down the right-hand side, which is really quite telling. Even without Bukayo Saka, Arsenal were a team that wanted to get the ball to the right. So first of all, why did they want to do that? Well, it's actually a fairly simple answer, right? In the middle of the pitch, it's always compact, it's difficult to play in these areas. Arsenal are a team which rotate brilliantly in possession. I think the back 4 can all play in different positions, they can all step up into midfield, they can play in a back 3 or a back 4, and we also see rotation in midfield as well. Calafiori can go and join these guys, and if we just quickly match them up in the midfield here for Arsenal, I think what's so impressive is the way that they interchange. So Marino can drop deeper, Calafiori might go higher, even Odegaard and Zubimendi can rotate. So Arsenal are always moving in these positions. However, regardless of that, it is still difficult to move the ball forward through the middle of the pitch, right? It's not an easy thing to do. And at times, Arsenal did struggle in these areas. However, an area where they did not struggle was out wide. And I think this is something which is really coming back into football. My favourite players have always been either midfielders that can pass or dribble, or wingers. Wingers that can isolate fullbacks, that are aggressive in their actions, look to take people on and make something happen. And in this game, Arteta was relying on that, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If you can't play through the middle, why not go into a zone out wide where you feel that you can put the ball at risk just a little bit more? You know, in the middle of the pitch, if you ask someone to dribble, for example, Odegaard, if you ask Odegaard to dribble past Anderson and he loses possession, you're in a really dangerous position. The opposition are at the heart of the pitch and can transition quickly. Whereas out wide, you almost don't worry so much about putting the ball at risk, partly because this is probably where your best dribblers are, but also because the opposition have further to go to actually get to your goal. So Noni Madueke was given the license to be aggressive, and you can see in his actions here, he was absolutely fantastic. I think he's had a brilliant start to the season so far, both for England and Arsenal. Just being aggressive, picking the ball up and going at fullbacks. And his explosiveness in the final third is a serious problem. He has this brilliant ability to slow the play right down. Like, he goes really, really slow to entice a fullback in. But then the acceleration is seriously impressive. He's got pace for days, and the way that he goes past people is magnificent. And again, I love the mentality of continuing to do it. Even if you fail a couple of dribbles, it doesn't seem to put him off. He just keeps going at his fullback. And I think physically, the way that he deals with these moments as well is very impressive. All round, he just had a brilliant game. Does he still need work on his end product? Of course he does. But this game really showed to me that if you can't play through a team, sometimes go around them, give the ball to a winger, and just let the magic happen. Now, over at St James's Park, things were a little bit different. Newcastle got their first win of the season in a 1-0 win against Wolverhampton Wanderers, but this time we are not talking about a winger, we are talking about a striker that is well over 6 foot tall, but does not play like he's 6 foot, but also does play like he's over 6 foot, and also on his full debut scores the goal to win Newcastle the match. A very good debut indeed for Voltemade, and we're talking about a unicorn profile here. And what I mean by that is a unique profile. A blend of attributes that we don't normally see in this sort of footballer. We've got a player here who is 6'4" and plays like a target man and has the physicality to battle centre-backs. This weekend, literally battling 3 centre-backs. But also, he's got the technical quality of a player who's like 5'9" and dribbles with the ball. And that's why it's unique. Of course, for the goal, we see his height, we see his ability in the air, towering over the defenders and heading the ball into the back of the net. That's proper 6'4" target man play in the box. But the rest of the game wasn't about that. It was about dropping deeper. You can see his pass map. He was a player that really looked after the ball for Newcastle. So Newcastle were able to give him the ball and he just looked after it brilliantly. And his footwork in moments was actually fantastic. The way that he sort of dealt with the contact from behind and then had the footwork was really actually quite fun to watch. Again, it's unique. He had the physicality to battle these big guys, but at the same time, whilst his upper body is doing that, his feet are doing something really technical, really agile, and turning past people and moving the ball for his team. So Voltemade, all in all, had a brilliant debut for Newcastle. Big shoes to fill, right? Isak leaving the club. It's going to be difficult for Voltemade. There's going to be a lot of pressure. He came in for a lot of money, but this start was brilliant. He was brilliant for the German under-21 side in the summer, and I think he, again, is a unique player that this weekend showed that these different types of players cause different types of problems for the opposition. Now, for the third game, we headed back to London-based football to watch West Ham versus Tottenham Hotspur. And this really gave me the thought of result-based analysis. What we often do, right, as football fans, is at the end of the weekend, we check the scorelines, we check the results and go, okay, Tottenham beat West Ham 3-0. They must be amazing. Things are easy for them. Tottenham Hotspur are cruising. But if you actually watch the match, you see something quite different, which is where the scoreline and stats can flatter a team and not necessarily paint the whole picture. Now, I don't think Spurs were bad at all. I think they were the dominant side. They absolutely deserved to win this game, particularly on set pieces. They were incredibly dangerous with Van de Ven and Romero up from the back. They caused all sorts of problems. But in open play, they did have some problems themselves. Now, again, that's not a massive criticism. You know, they didn't play perfectly, but still won 3-0. So they must be doing something right. But for me, they lacked something in open play in terms of creativity. In the first half, they had just 0.03 expected goals from open play. And the problem for me was the profiles in midfield in Thomas Frank's team. For me, it didn't feel as though there was expressive enough players in here. Now, particularly in the case of Bergvall and Sarr, we've got two seriously gifted footballers, players that I really like. They're two of my favourite midfielders in the league. But I don't know that you need them two plus Palhinha. Palhinha isn't an expressive player. He's not a player who progresses through the centre. And as a result, Spurs did struggle to move the ball through the middle. I'll put on the screen the pass maps of the three central midfielders. Neither of them are really actually punching the ball through the lines. And this was a problem for Tottenham. But it's not surprising. If we look at the progressive passing numbers of the four midfielders that Spurs have available to them, we've got one of them ranking in 156th in the Premier League for progressive passes, one of them in 102nd, one of them in 101st, and the best is in 82nd in the Premier League. So Spurs do have a bit of a problem. Is this tactical or is it personnel and profiles? Let me know what you think in the comments. For me, I think it's a bit of a blend of the two. I think Thomas Frank's side is a bit static at the moment with their positioning. I think there are moments where, you know, the fullbacks push a little bit further forward, but they feel like they are very much sort of dead in line with the two midfielders. And then the wingers are dead in line with the fullbacks. It feels a bit basic, the shape at the moment. Now, again, that's fine. Thomas Frank has only just come into the club. It's going to take time for his ideas to get across to the players, really. But at the moment, I think there's a bit of a problem. And I just wonder if Thomas Frank could be a bit more expressive. For example, could he drop Bergvall into a deeper midfield position? Could we take Palhinha out the side, for example? This double pivot is fantastic, and it allows you to get one more expressive player on the pitch. Xavi Simons could go into the 10, for example. Someone else could come in on the left wing. For example, you could go Tell on the left-hand side. You could go Richarlison up front. Is this now just a bit more expressive? In Simons, you've got someone who has that ability to play on the turn a little bit more, get the ball on his back foot and drive at people. It's, for me, something that Tottenham need to consider. Now, the last match that I want to talk about today, because I've already covered the Manchester derby on the main channel, is Liverpool away from home against Burnley. Liverpool continued their stuttering, yet invincible start to the season. I've won every single match so far. I've watched every single one of them, and I'm yet to be convinced by this Liverpool team. And they do have some tactical problems. Of course, they've got incredible quality, particularly in the defence, in midfield, and in attacking areas. The whole team is just very, very good. And those moments of quality get them out of trouble incredibly often. And something that sort of came to my mind this weekend is Slot doing that on purpose? You see, what we often see from Liverpool is Salah, of course, will play an advanced role. So Bosley will join forward in the attack. Gakpo plays high. Gravenberch is given the licence, as is McAllister. Sometimes we see Kirkesh as well moving forward. I wasn't actually supposed to highlight all of those guys, but never mind. But what Liverpool do is they often leave themselves isolated at the back. Let's just remove these highlights from some of these players because it's going to be a little bit annoying. So, what Liverpool will often do is leave themselves a little bit exposed at the back. So all of these players are moving forward and trying to create chances, but there is clearly a weakness in this Liverpool team. Every single team so far in the Premier League has been able to hit them on the break and get into really promising positions. And every single match, I sit there as a slightly jealous Manchester United fan, and I go, they're getting a little bit lucky. Virgil van Dijk is carrying that defence. And a question came to my mind this weekend, and I really want you guys to help with this in the comments. This isn't rhetorical. I would love to hear your thoughts. Do we think Slot's tactics are weak, and therefore Virgil van Dijk is required to bail him out? You know, a get out of jail free card at times, because at this point he's probably the best defender to ever play the sport. He's gone to another level at the start of this season, which is impressive, because last year he was amazing. Or is it Slot knows exactly what he's got at the back? He knows he's got access to one of the best centre-backs in world football, so he feels that he can leave him isolated in those positions. You know, if this was another defender, for example, if Liverpool had just a more standard centre-back, would Slot be changing his ideas? And it sort of brought the question to me of, do the players lead the tactics, or do the tactics lead the players? You know, is Van Dijk making up for a weakness in Slot's game? Or is Slot going, I've got an amazing centre-back, which means I can push another player further forward in the attack, knowing that the big Dutchman is going to cover me at the back? I would love to hear what you guys think, because this is either a weakness from Slot or actually genius, just making the most of an amazing talent. And again, it brings that question of, do the players, not just at Liverpool, at all football clubs, lead the tactics, or do the tactics lead the players? And what's the right way to do it? Now, like I said, the intention for this video and this new series, which I still need a name for, isn't to analyze games and really go in depth. It's actually just to give you guys my thoughts, the ideas that are popping into my head when I'm watching these Premier League matches. We saw the importance in the Arsenal game of explosive wingers, players that can go 1 versus 1 and be game breakers. They can break systems because they can dribble past a player. At Newcastle, we saw the value of a unique profile. Voltemade is going to be such an interesting player to watch this season, because it's not typically the sort of player that you have to deal with. A target man, but also incredibly technical. We're not used to watching that. At Tottenham, we saw the importance of actually watching matches. It's easy to look at the scoreline and see that Spurs won 3-0, but there are still things that we need to watch. And then there's Liverpool, who still haven't started the season that well in terms of performance, but in terms of results, they're absolutely smashing it. Virgil van Dijk is bailing them out a lot, but perhaps it's intentional and therefore genius from Slot. Those are my thoughts from the Premier League action this weekend. I would also love to hear yours, because obviously there were some matches I missed, but also perhaps some lessons that I missed from these games. So if you have noticed anything else from this weekend, please do let me know in the comments down below. But apart from that, we are finished for today. So thank you guys very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.